We are just finishing the pick and ban phase at this point. Blue team has banned out Mundo, LeBlanc, and Vi, whereas purple team has banned out Wukong, Lucian, and Kassadin. Lucian and Kassadin, I don't generally see them banned anymore. Kassadin, the nerf really did place him in a relatively poor position. That being said, though, before I talk about that, I'm just going to go over the final picks, and then I'll let you guys sort of see what you think about it. Blue team has picked up the Thresh, Lee Sin, Katarina, Jinx, and Jax. They haven't swapped yet. Right now, Jax is running Smite. I would expect that to be, yeah, there's the trade. Jax is top lane, and then Lee Sin jungle. Then on the split side, they have Trundle top in Anivia mid, a Karma Ezreal bot lane, which I actually really like that combo as a Karma player myself. And then they have a Zac jungle, which is a little bit undervalued, but starting to make a slight, very, very slight comeback. I've seen him picked a little bit more. I would only suggest the Kassadin ban if they knew that they were already picking Anivia, because Q does cancel out Channeled Spell like Anivia's ult. In the meantime, I will have you guys go over your basic thoughts of the team comp in terms of how the lane matchups will go, scaling, anything like that. Seeing as you are not able to spectate just yet, if you want to jump into the stream at twitch.tv/profanumber, I actually have it on my screen at the moment, so you can check that just so that you can be reminded of what the picks and bans were.
So the first team with Thresh, Lee Sin, Katarina, Jax, I think you said. They have a lot of mobility, and if a lot of those champions can get their jumps on, say, an AD carry like Ezreal, Ezreal and Karma are so incredibly pokey, and they can do so much damage by just keeping the team around and poking them down with their abilities. But if Ezreal and Karma get caught out by the first team, which is so incredibly mobile and is so strong with their ability to assassinate them, then they're definitely going to be able to lose team fights really, really quickly. Because typically with comps, you want to be able to poke the enemy team down before they engage on you. But if that engage happens prior to the poking, then you've pretty much lost a team fight.
For sure. And in terms of disengage, they have the Anivia wall, they have the Anivia stun, and they have the Trundle pillar. So they're going to be very good at controlling contained team fights, especially jungle skirmishes, where they can set up the wall and the pillar to completely block off paths. But as you mentioned, they have a lot of jumpy champions. They have the Katarina with her Shunpo, the Lee Sin, the Jax. They're all going to be able to jump around most of these barriers. And if they're able to get onto these squishy champions, Anivia especially, she just melts if you ever get to her and are able to cancel out her ult and catch her out of position. I'm a little concerned for how well they're going to be able to control those, but I would definitely be suggesting for them to try and push towards the actual team fight skirmishes in the jungle, where you can sort of control the team a little bit better.
I think it's also noteworthy to point out that with the Katarina on the other side, a purple team doesn't actually have very accessible stuns to stop her immediately. You have the Zac, and I believe the Trundle Pillar can also interrupt Katarina's ultimate, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So with that in mind, I think it's going to be really hard to stop Katarina from jumping on priority targets and melting them instantaneously before Zac or Trundle can interrupt.
It's the same with Jax. You need a lot of peel for Jax late game, and if you don't have a stun on Jax, if you don't have any CC on him, he's just going to be able to melt down the AD carry or the AP carry.
And he's another one of those top laners who he does reach that breakpoint, kind of regardless of how his lane goes.
I would just like to interrupt you right there and say that Trundle is an amazing counter to Jax, because Jax's ultimate is directly countered by Trundle's.
Oh, it's definitely true, but in terms of assassination potential, regardless of how lane goes, sooner or later he's going to get one or two core items, and just his kit in general is very good at picking off those targets that are caught out alone. But you are definitely correct in that Trundle should have a relatively easy time versus him. Jax is famous for having a little bit of early game dueling potential, but mostly just kind of wanting to survive lane until he gets an item or two, until he gets a few skills and levels under his belt. But if Trundle's able to abuse that with his early engages, then I would expect that to continue to snowball in Trundle's favor. As you mentioned, being able to steal a lot of his stats, especially the stats from his ult, is going to be a very useful skill for him to have.
Oh, and not only that, but I believe that Trundle scales much faster than Jax can. I understand that Jax is a hyper carry, and by definition will always trump in the late game. However, because he will have the mountain of Trundle to surmount, he's going to have a hard time to actually get into his late game role and really carry his team.
Agreed. Now, the game is starting now. You should be able to spectate off of myself. If you're having any issues with that, please let me know, and we can find another way to get you in for the spectation.
Is spectation actually a word?
I'm making it a word now. You don't get a choice. Just before we load in and are a little bit distracted here, if any of you guys do have questions in chat, feel free to mention so, and we'll do what we can to bring you up to speed. Also, the Steam game giveaway is open now. This is a consolation prize for those who did not win the RP card. The keyword is round 2, and you must be following the channel in order to win. Apparently Twitch is changing the ruling on that, but for now I'm going to say that you do have to be following. Oh, someone was asking about wanting to get into the last game. I am not answering that call. If you do want into the next game, make sure that you are in the proper chat rooms for the roles you want to play. P4N mid, P4N top, P4N support, P4N jungle. And I don't even remember what the final one I didn't mention was. Brian was the one handling all the matchmaking for that. I will let you guys know when he's starting to pull players in. And if you have not played in a workshop today or you're new to the stream, please just say so in chat. We do try and give a little bit of priority to newer viewers. And if you get an invite from Felverick, make sure you accept it so that we can make the matches as quickly as possible so that we don't have extended downtime between matches. Yes, that was Citra. Apparently they're on their way back. Oh, apparently the door is locked. Could you let them in?
I'd like to point out also that Purple Team has a pretty strong set of frontliners between Zac and Trundle.
Yes. That being said, though, their peel is not that good. In terms of, like, frontline in your face, they don't have extended lockdown, and they don't have extended peel. Zac can use his ult, obviously, and he has the one bounce, but it doesn't really lock people in place, and it doesn't really disengage a full fight.
No, but I think with this team composition, you've got the really strong poke between Anivia, Karma, and Ezreal. And then you've got just enough interruption that, you know, in case there is a dive coming from the blue team, that purple should be able to somewhat diminish, like, the diving potential enough so that they can get back into position to poke again.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of that does boil down to, does blue team get fed? They have a Katarina, and if she gets a reset, she's just going to whip through your team. They have a late-game Jinx, who, again, if she gets a reset, she's going to have the Get Excited passive. She's going to be able to just rip through your entire team. They're all relatively squishy except for Zac, and dependent on how he builds and who he ults, Trundle. And then, of course, you have Jax, who, once he gets his Trinity Force and or Blade of the Ruin King, he's going to be able to chase down all these squishy targets. So I am agreeing with you that he's going to be able to diminish a lot of the early dive potential. But if any of those champions on blue team does get fed, then I don't see who's going to be able to lock down these champions long enough to take them out of play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I really like this matchup because it's there's no obvious clear-cut winner in terms of pure matchup for this game. It's really interesting.
I don't know how I feel about this Zac jungle versus Elise in jungle because the blob nerfs on Zac hit him pretty hard, and Zac is also a very farm-dependent jungler, which is not currently in the meta. What junglers need to do right now is they really need a gank, and Lee Sin has a huge ganking potential over Zac. So definitely, if Lee Sin can continuously gank top and mid, he can get his carries very fed, and blue team will have the advantage, definitely.
How do you feel about the scaling between the two junglers, where obviously, as you said, Zac is a farm jungler who wants to be able to scale up, whereas Lee Sin's the complete opposite? How do you feel that's going to affect them, assuming no team gets completely fed?
Late game, it's definitely going to be Zac with the advantage if he can farm. Even if he is deterred a little bit by this Lee Sin, he could just build tanky and act as a barrier and a shield for his team, and just jump in and disrupt the blue team. However, Lee Sin, while he doesn't scale much late game, he does have the Jax and the Katarina to help him out there. And if Lee Sin can just get an insect on one of purple team's carries, then I mean, it's pretty much GG in the team fight.
For sure. Assuming he can land that displacement, it's going to be very powerful. I would like, personally, to see that combined with a Thresh. You have the long-range Thresh Hook and Lantern to set up any sort of a pick, and then you can use Lee Sin to lock down that target for that little bit of extra time you need so that you can burst them down, get the resets, get your carries rolling, and then at that point, assuming it's the right target, they should be able to just sort of roll through the enemy team. Now we're seeing some somewhat extended leashes coming in. That's slightly fallen out of favor in higher level play. I haven't seen it trickle down much into general solo queue. Oftentimes what I see is about 2 or 3 auto attacks max and then just walk to lane. In this case though, they're not really going to lose anything, and it does help their jungler a little bit in order to try and get them that little bit of extra health so that they can land those safe jungle clears and potential ganks.
Also, Zach's starting red first, which is a little bit unusual, typically since junglers want to take the buffs farthest from top lane so that they can rotate towards top and gank top first. So I'm a little interested here. I think Zach is really going just for the farming jungle right now, as I said before, which is really not very advantageous for his team.
Personally, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Anivia running a barrier. My reasoning behind that is that if Katarina does get the reset, she's going to be able to...
we're going to get a kill from Ezreal on the bot lane. Beautiful play by Karma, and Ezreal to poke Jinx down before the dive.
Ezreal Karma is so dangerous.
I am a huge fan of Karma support right now. I've been playing it for the past few weeks, and I don't know, I did maybe like 30 games of Karma support over the last while. I crowned a division or more with it, and it was just so much fun. The early gank, not the early gank, the early kill potential that she has if you land that poke is astounding.
I'm a little bit against this Lee Sin trying to gank mid here. Top is definitely more pushed out. I think he should have tried a lane gank top rather than just staying mid.
And Lee Sin before 6, obviously he doesn't have any strong CC, and Anivia is going to have her egg. Taking out that passive is important, but it's not necessarily going to lead to tangible advantages for Katarina, who usually just kind of wants to scale up, get her ult, and start assassinating low health targets.
It'll be really interesting to see if this Katarina will be able to kill this Anivia, and if she doesn't kill this Anivia, to see if she stays mid lane rather than just like try and gank bot or top, and seeing if she can get fed off of that.
And if she isn't able to, then we would expect to see Anivia shoving in very, very hard. That's one of Anivia's greatest strengths is, yeah, she has a relatively weak laning phase. She's bullied easily. But if you leave her alone, your tower's gone. Like, she pushes very, very heavily.
Thresh
getting a hook onto Ezreal. Lee Sin looks like he's going to be backing off now, taking way too much damage from this very pokey bot lane.
At the same time, it forced the flash away from Ezreal, so if Thresh manages to land another hook, I think it's going to be a secure kill on Ezreal because he decided to stay in lane.
So up top lane, we're seeing a lot of trades going down, and they're going relatively
down
equal.
In mid, also Anivia going down, Katarina getting very low from the ignite, and Zach should be able to get the kill here, and he does. And top lane, Trundle getting very low. Like you said, lots of trades going down, very aggressive top lane.
It's a shockingly high amount of potions that they brought into this lane. Trundle went for the Cloth 5, whereas Jax went for Flask and full health potions. And he's just using that extra health regen to try and force trades every single chance he can get. Trundle was winning the trades every time I checked, but it doesn't matter when you have that many potions. Sooner or later, that trade is not going to go in your advantage. And unless you're setting up ganks, unless you're setting up secured kills, then it's not really going to amount to much.
Ezreal and Karma are doing a really great job of just putting as much pressure as possible on Jinx and Thresh.
It's interesting to see that Jinx is very behind in CS, and it seems like Thresh has been taking some of her CS as well. I'm a little confused about that.
It's not uncommon if I'm in a lower rated game. If my AD carry is missing CS, I'll just start taking a little bit. You see Lee Sin trying for a counter gank, gets a little bit caught out by Zac, but then is able to return in as soon as Katarina responds. And I like that choice to say, okay, this is the fight we want, and then immediately turn around once your allies show up. Unfortunately, Anivia did respond at the same time, and I would expect Zac to be able to get away. Yeah, turning on that would not be good.
There seemed to be some confusion about whether or not they wanted to engage there, and oh, Katarina might be able to get a kill here, but
she used her ignite
not.
earlier, unfortunately. That was incredibly close, though. I would have expected as soon as they turned around, as soon as Katarina showed up, to be able to lock them down that little bit longer. Unfortunately, they stayed around the blobs rather than turning onto Anivia, who had already used her passive.
It's also really unfortunate that Katarina was just not able to hit 6 while Anivia was. So there's a little bit of confusion there whether Katarina could have hit 6. Maybe she was in the lane as long as Anivia. Getting 6 as a mid laner should definitely be your #1 goal.
I love how Karma is able to single-handedly put pressure on 2 of the enemy bot lanes.
It's also interesting that both Anivia and Zac both have a sort of a second wind with their passives. Well, Anivia has her eggs, and Zac just turns into his blobs. So not quite sure if they planned that, but that'll make for very good baits during team fights.
Especially the jungle skirmishes.
Well, it's like with the Jinx and the Katarina, they both have the reset power, while the purple team have the resurrection powers.
Yeah, they're very well matched up in terms of what they want to accomplish. Again, we don't know if it was planned. We weren't able to see their chat, but I do like it in terms of just like general concepts and team comps. Karma's still zoning very, very nicely bot lane. Unfortunately, not able to connect her Mantrid Q, or I feel they could have got another kill onto Jinx. They do land a binding.
On Zac top.
This Lee Sin is so incredibly behind the Zac. He's 2 levels behind the Zac. Lee Sin level 4 while Zac was level 6. Not only that, but he's farm behind Zac. And Zac also has a kill and an assist over Lee Sin. So ultimate going down on Jinx, and we'll be able to kill her.
So there's something interesting is that Trundle top, instead of opting for the Blade of the Ruin King, actually went straight for HP with a giant spell. I'm not sure if I really agree with that decision, just because the Blade of the Ruin King is such a good tool on Trundle, and he already scales really hard with his stats in terms of health and defense, that I'm not sure whether or not that was entirely necessary against Jax.
I don't agree with that decision either. If Trundle had gone Blade of the Ruin King first, he would have had enough lifesteal to out-harass this Jax. And purple team getting the first dragon here. And with their advantages right now, have a huge gold advantage because of their kills and dragon. So things looking a little dire right now for blue team. Lee Sin connecting the Q onto Anivia, but not going to tower diver.
And there's the kill on Anivia. Or maybe not. Ooh, is she gonna get the double?
Both ignites going onto the mid lane, but the kill on Katarina, I'm not quite too sure if that was entirely necessary. It seemed like both the mid lane and the jungle were hesitating a bit there. A lot of damage going onto Trundle.
Zac getting a very nice kill on Lee Sin up mid. There is a grab going on Karma down bot, and even though Ezreal falls into the grenades, the sheer poke from both Karma and Ezreal combined is absolutely destroying the Thresh and Jinx. They're just completely unable to return all of that damage.
Yeah, it's funny because it seems like every time Thresh lands a hook, both Karma and Ezreal are like, oh, okay, it's just easier to poke you down then. Up in top lane, Trundle putting a lot of damage onto Jax, but nothing there really.
I'd like
Jax
to point
backing
out
off.
There's something that went wrong in Trundle's decision making here because he decided to engage Jax with the ultimate, whereas he should have waited for Jax to engage on him and use his ultimate before stealing away the stats that Jax gets from that.
Katarina came down bot lane to see if she could get a gank. Karma flashing onto Thresh and getting a kill on Thresh, but dying herself to Katarina. Anivia also coming bot lane, seeing the Katarina incredibly low, putting a wall down on her, but Katarina will jump out to a ward near Dragon.
That was very quick thinking on Katarina's part.
There's no way Katarina is going to really be able to win mid at this point. Anivia does have 2 kills over her, does have 11 CS over her. Zac going up top. Jax will be tower diving and dying to tower here.
Once again, Trundle decided to ultimate before Jax, so what happens in this case is that he will always lose every single engage this way, because he's not making use of the free stats his ultimate gives him by stealing away from Jax's. If he just waited that second longer to just wait until Jax decided to engage on him with his ultimate, if Trundle ultimated then it would turn the tables absolutely in his favor.
It was also really smart that Jax, instead of running away, because he knew he was going to die already from the Zac gank, just turned around and was like, alright, I'll just kill you then. What you see a lot going on top lane is once a jungler comes and ganks like that, the top lane will usually just die. They won't do much. They'll try and run away and they'll just end up dying anyways.
I almost think that this Trundle is deciding to play his character like he would Renekton. And in this, if he was playing Renekton, in that case, building the Sunfire Cape would be a better decision. Also, simply because Renekton counters Jax more or less because of his damage not being entirely auto-attack based.
Also, down in bot lane, we'll see an unsuccessful 4-man gank from blue team.
Thresh unleashing the box here, I'm not too sure why that happened. Perfect. This time around, Trundle did exactly what he was supposed to do and waited for Jax to engage with his ultimate before using his, and as we see, he got a kill almost instantly after this happened.
This is Troll Town!
That was good. That was a very reactive play from Trundle, and that's what he should have been doing the entire lane through.
Zac giving over the blue to Anivia and activating her Rod of Ages at the same time. I'm sorry, her Catalyst. Katarina is going to be going on bot to try and initiate a gank.
It's possible that this could be successful because, well, actually no, Ward spotted Katarina right here, but the Thresh will be going in and possibly going down to Karma. Will be going down to Karma and the Jinx ult. Not enough damage to take either Karma
Anivia
or
might be able
Ezreal
to
down.
connect her stun right there, but whiffs.
Focus.
It really just seems like every time they try and 4-man or 3-man gank bot, nothing really seems to happen. They're really unsuccessful ganks.
Anivia has been really good in reacting to action going on top or bottom lane. She's always followed Katarina wherever she's been attempting to gank someone.
Anivia trying to get a kill down on Jinx here. Jinx kind of just walking around her. Anivia having to flash away from the Katarina and the Lee Sin, putting up a defensive wall and just walking away.
Oh, that's quite a dangerous predicament here for Purple Team, because if Katarina is able to get one reset on any of them, that's going to be a quarter kill right there.
But the poke comp will really just do them in from Ezreal and Karma, really.
Karma and Ezreal are right now so ahead that the sheer amount of damage they're able to put out might actually
Katarina
offset
ulting,
Katarina.
getting a reset onto Karma, getting Ezreal incredibly low, but it won't be enough to kill him. Maybe, yes, with the Ignite, it does kill him. And Lee Sin and Thresh here will be able to clean up on the Zac. So you're right, that Katarina reset really just made that fight.
Jax and Trundle are completely ignoring each other now at this point in the game, the lane. They're just farming side by side and barely interacting with each other. They're both trying to reach that hyper carry state into the late games. They're both very strong late game characters. So I'm not too sure if I agree with this, because I believe that Trundle should be putting a bit of pressure on the Jax.
I'm a little bit surprised that no one went for Dragon after that fight bot lane. They got the Katarina resets. Obviously, Katarina went down in the process, but they could have easily enough cycled through and taken away a free objective just to make that fight that much better overall. Get that global gold, get the lanes rolling, and try and snowball as much as you can off of it.
Yeah, both Lee Sin and Thresh were pretty much full health after that fight. So they definitely could have. Up in top lane, Ignite going down onto Trundle, but both bot tops incredibly low, but no kill. However,
And
Trundle may stay, and Lee Sin is trying to... So we may see Trundle going down here. Lee Sin does not connect his Q, but Jack still jumps onto top of the Trundle, and they will be able to kill him.
Back in mid lane, we see that Zac was able to sneak around the side a little bit, and Nivea actually barely surviving. Katarina went in on Anivia, and Anivia disengaged as best she could, and then they were able to clean that up together. At this point, they are cycling around for a free dragon. I really like that decision where you know the AoE threat of Katarina and her resets are down. So, again, get the global gold, get your team rolling as fast as you can.
Also, there was just a perfect decision making there, because Lee Sin was sieging the top tower. So there was no chance of the blue team being able to get that dragon.
And anytime you are trying to do an objective or a fight or a gank, you do want to keep in mind where everyone is on the map. They knew he was top because he was, of course, visible. There was a fight there. And using that information to your advantage can get you really far in ranked.
I'm not too sure if I agreed with that. The decision from Lee Sin to go top lane, because while they were able to get a tower, ultimately Jax was the one who killed Trundle, and Jax probably also could have taken the tower himself.
Katarina and Anivia cutting it extraordinarily close between each other right there. With Anivia coming out just on top by a very small margin of health.
And that's the same thing that's been happening every fight with them. Anivia drops down to oftentimes 100 or less health, and then Katarina dies to either a gank or that final skill coming out from her.
Jax was almost psychic right there. He didn't even have a ward, and yet he decided to disengage the tower just as Zac was coming in.
Also, this is where things are going to be a little bit difficult for Anivia as we're getting closer to a time where team fights are going to be happening regularly. Jax and Katarina, if they can just sync up their abilities together, they could easily get a kill onto Anivia or Ezreal. Down in bot lane, Thresh will be getting caught out, flashes away, but Ezreal getting the kill onto him. They may be also Trundle still chasing the Lee Sin and the Jinx, but they will be getting away safely.
At this point, Katarina is a little bit cut off. She's caught out in the enemy jungle. At this point, they either need to fight immediately, or she just needs to get out.
Oh, a very good Deathfire Grasp from Katarina. Secures the kill on Karma.
She is going to immediately run into Anivia.
But, yeah. both Lee Sin and Jax getting so incredibly low. Not too sure where Jinx is in this fight. Seems like she completely ignored her team there.
Yeah, the decision-making from blue side was very split. Katarina decided to go in and try and assassinate. She got caught off. So then the rest of the team tried to cycle around to her, and Jinx just said, no, I want the tower. And so they ended up with 3 different groups of people, all split off trying to fight their own little war. And as a result, 3 of them die as a result. They only get the karma for themselves. So a kill onto a support in terms of 3 deaths on your side and a tower, not really worth it. I mean, the tower is great. It's going to provide some map pressure, but at this stage of the game, focus real objectives, like across the entire map.
Katarina was already caught out there, and she got a kill onto Karma. So if Katarina had died and Karma had died, it would have been equal as long as both blue team had just focused on getting the turret. It would have been a fine trade there. So I don't agree with the Jax and Lee Sin trying to go in. I don't think, even if Jinx had been a part of that fight, the results wouldn't have been very different.
Yeah, they're just too split up at that point. And they don't want those jungle fights. As I mentioned before, the terrain control abilities coming out from Trundle and Anivia are going to make jungle fights so much more towards their advantage than you would have if you're doing like a sieging mid-lane fight.
And also the Zac ult in a tiny space could just be disastrous.
And jumping back and forth over walls with the Zac and the Ezreal as well.
Looks like purple team wants to try and siege mid right now. Blue tower down to mid is so incredibly low, so not too sure what Lee Sin or Katarina can do here. Jack's coming around, trying to see if he can help his team.
Oh, Jinx might be able to make something happen on Ezreal, but he flashes away. Jinx is kind of entering, after she got that Bloodthirster, she's really entering the stage in the game where she herself starts to become almost a hyper carry sort of figure. She will be caught out, however, by Anivia and Karma, unfortunately, and will not be able to take the Thresh Lantern to get away.
The decision-making on her part to go try and fight a Karma, who has plenty of damage all on her own between Source Boots, Amp Tome, and Haunting Guys, is a little odd to me. I mean, you know the rest of the team is there, so it just seems very risky.
Getting caught out by 4 blue teams, but she does have her egg down. However, Karma and Ezreal will just be walking away from her.
There was nothing they could do from this team.
Jax
Zac
trying to jump onto the Zac. Zac ulting. Karma getting down so much damage onto Jax and Katarina. Thresh
I'm not too sure why Ezreal is not participating in this fight. He decided to attack the white camp instead of participating in the team fight, and I believe that if he had focused with his team, yes, the results would have been incredibly different for that team fight.
Mm-hmm. And he does have all of his core damage items at this time. Obviously, Trinity Force not quite finished, but he does have the Sheen, he has the Bloodthirster, Zeal. He has plenty of sustained damage to join these fights. As long as he's maintaining proper positioning, he's at essentially 0 risk. So Jinx has actually run up top lane to try and pick up a little bit of farm for herself. I like that decision, and it's because, as we mentioned earlier, she does scale up into a relative terror come mid and late game. So her taking away some jungle camps, picking up some spare farm, is actually going to serve her very well come about the 30-minute mark as we see more and more team fights shaping up.
On that note, Chris, I would also like to point out how the difference between Jinx and Ezreal's CS, even though she's been incredibly behind all this time, she's been doing an incredible job of keeping up with her enemy ADC in terms of CS.
Also, Ezreal ult going down onto Katarina, getting her incredibly low. Anivia flashed onto her, and Katarina flashed away.
Trundle and Zac are probably going to try to make something happen to the Jax top lane. Jax is definitely overextended with no ward coverage whatsoever, so he might actually die from this gank. Or not, he jumps away to a minion.
Zac stopping in that bush and trying to do the slingshot seemed a little odd. If I were him, I would have continued running into the river to cut them off, and then you can use the rest of your skills as a sort of lockdown rather than as an engage.
Jinx extraordinarily ballsy there as she goes in on 3 enemy people and Dragon, and somehow manages to get away and deal a ton of damage on Karma and Anivia.
I think the 3 of them there could have definitely contested for that dragon because it was only top lane and jungle were both top, so it was 3v3 around a dragon. So Jinx was really the only one to go in. I think they could have contested it.
So Zac just barely misses his slingshot onto Jinx. Trundle decides to go in, lands a lot of damage onto him, and that's going to be a very, very dead Jinx here.
Lee Sin could have really used his ultimate to try and peel for her there, and I'm somehow disappointed that he did not do that, in fact.
We get Katarina with the resets.
Katarina trying to jump onto Ezreal here, but will be walking away. They really need to back off right now. Thresh getting incredibly low from the Anivia and the Ezreal, and he'll be going down as well.
Katarina has been doing a really good job of trying to feed herself off of ganks to turn herself into the killing machine she is meant to be. However, both Anivia and Ezreal have been so ahead this entire time that I'm not sure whether or not that's going to be enough to really catch the deficit that they're in right now.
I also want to point out the Jinx ult that was just used. I'm not sure what it was intended to accomplish. No one was within kill range, Katarina was not able to join the fight, and there's no other allies around. So the turret's already gone, you're not going to save it. You're just using a medium-length cooldown. It's going to be up in about a minute, but you're not accomplishing anything with it. If I were her, I'd hold that cooldown and try and chase with my team to set up a quick fight, whether that's an objective fight or whether you're trying to take away mid-tower, which is at about half health. It's just a very important cooldown for cleaning up targets.
I think the biggest flaw here for Blue Team is they're really not capitalizing on small victories. They're overstaying their welcome during team fights, and they're really just getting behind because of it.
For sure. And that definitely is a mistake we see often, where they'll get an advantage, they won't use it for anything, but they'll also then throw it away immediately after by just overstaying.
And Blue Team is already so behind already. They really can't get greedy during team fights or when they catch someone on Purple Team out. They really just need to back off.
I like that Karma is picking up some farm. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Purple Team has incredible follow-up, like you said, with the Ezreal and the Anivia. They have so much damage between the two of them.
I was just going to point out that Karma is trying to pick up as much farm as she can mid lane, and the laning phase is over at this point, and Karma is a very potent mage come this stage of the game, with her AoE crowd control effects and just general shredding that she's going to have from that Liandry's. So I like the fact that they're donating her a bit of farm.
Out here, but he will be eating over the wall.
Jinx will get caught out herself by Karma and Anivia to die. Oh, this is quite the team fight.
Going on to Anivia, but the egg will stop him. Katarina getting incredibly low from the Trundle, but Lee Sin will be helping her, kicking Trundle away, but now getting caught as a result himself here.
Thresh pulling the enemies back in for the follow-up and getting caught out himself. I'm not sure why this hook went. Maybe he was trying to get the Karma, but after such a terrible team fight for his team, that was probably one of the worst decisions he could have done.
Well, what happened there is that Zac tried to jump, the hook cancelled the jump, but at that point you're kinda locked into that fight.
And Purple Team here will be getting a free inner turret and inhibitor.
I would expect to see them back out after this inhib. They don't have time to end the game, and they don't have the lockdown potential, just like hard engage, fiddle, flash fear, or something like that to secure extra kills. So they may as well go back. If I were them, I'd be setting up some map control in the enemy jungle at this point and trying to prep for Baron and use that inhibitor as an advantage, as essentially a sixth man to essentially control the map and set up extra objectives for them.
That is exactly what the Purple Team should be doing right now, and I'm quite certain that it is also what they're going to be doing. They're clearing out the wards of Blue Team around the Baron. They've set up a ward at Blue and in the bush to the right. So they're really getting that zone control in, and as you can see, Blue Team is trying to scout out whether or not purple is getting that Baron right now. Now, the combined poking power and pushing power of purple team might really win this game for them, simply because the hyper carries, Jax and Katarina, were not able to really get into their monster stage as of yet. And with the sheer amount of like map pressure the purple team is able to put in right now, it's doubtful they're going to be able to like just push themselves back out to an even state with a 12,000 gold deficit now.
And we are at 32 minutes, and Jax has built a Gunblade. I know Jaxes who really like it, but personally I feel Blade of the Ruined King is a better option. But that being said,
for some reason, trying to come around the jungle and getting way too close to the purple team.
There seems to be a trend with his play this game.
Katarina's going to try to jump on Anivia and get that reset. Is she going to be able to do a reversal? Oh, she flashes away beautifully.
We've seen Lee do that a few times now, though, where he just goes a little too deep, where he's trying to land a fight that he has no way of possibly winning.
Some damage here going down onto Trundle from Jax and Jinx.
Jinx is a tad out of position for my liking. The purple team could easily dive her right now.
And it looks like they will try... No, they're a little unsure.
Zach has been missing a lot of his slingshots this game. I'm not sure if that's just him not being very familiar with the champion, but it is a very crucial skill to be able to land. It's your initiation, it's your main CC, and it's even a reasonable amount of damage. So the fact that he's rushing it and missing it more often than not is a little troubling to me.
Are these teams communicating with each other with like over Skype or?
No. This is
okay.
The point of the workshops is that you do get assigned to a specific role, and you're paired up with someone of similar rating to yourself. But the idea is that you're using this as ways to practice and improve your solo queue performance.
Oh, okay.
So you're strongly encouraged to communicate to the best of your ability, because that's an important skill for solo queue. But we don't actually have like a VoIP set up for them.
Okay. Yeah, what seems to be the trend here is that Katarina will be going in by herself into teamfights and trying to catch out Anivia. So what Thresh really should do is to set up a lantern for her after she gets the kill.
Yeah, that would be a very easy disengage for her.
Because it seems like she's been having to try and get away to the best of her abilities on her own.
So purple team is just reminding themselves that there is a large wave bot. Israel's going to ult that out real quick. And again, we're not seeing them really do too much right now. They're just sort of farming up. No one really wants to fight each other. They're waiting for the other people to make a mistake. And I like that they're not rushing things, but I would still want them to be trying to make their own plays.
Purple team is at such an advantage right now that really they're just making the game a bit longer than it really needs to be at this point. They should prioritize that Baron. They can initiate, and they can also win the team fights at this point, because blue team is simply just so far behind. Purple team's
and blue team is exactly out of position with Jax. Going back, blue team having no wards onto Baron either.
That being said, starting Baron while Anivia is still not there is slightly questionable. As is Lee Sin's positioning here. He's way in behind. He is able to pick up a free kill for himself, though.
Blue team just going in one by one and seeing what they can do. And it is not very much.
Yeah, that was just very sloppy from both teams' positioning. Anivia was able to join before the fight started, and as you mentioned, Jax was not there. They were split up, and Lee Sin, again, he was in behind, I'm assuming, to try and steal the Baron, and not on the same page as his team. If you're going to try and steal Baron, that's all well and good, but the rest of your team can't try and fight while you're not in position to join it.
I think what I would have liked to see from purple team here is, since blue team had no wards, and they did have... Did they have Baron pinked? Well, they could have had Baron pinked and just try and baited the Baron, really. Waited for blue team to come, and they could have easily just team fought them.
At one point they did have a pink there. I believe it got cleared a little while back, though.
Okay.
But yeah, using pinks to bait objectives is something that I personally need to do more of because it is such a strong strategy. They have no way to tell. The only real way to tell would be using like a quick ward over the wall, which you're going to clear immediately. And at that point, you can choose to either do the objective, retreat, or you can fight. It costs so little in terms of risk. So we see Karma has opted to go for a Talisman of Ascension and a Twin Shadow. I personally don't like those items on Karma, but they're okay. If I were her, I would be going towards a Void Staff to increase my magic damage a little bit, keep things relevant. Hell, if she really wanted to, she could go an Abyssal Scepter to increase the magic damage coming out from Anivia, and she is going to be in range for its aura to be effective. And it would also help reduce the chance of Katarina getting a reset. So here we see them try and do a bush bite. They do now realize it was warded, but that, again, some wasted time. If you're going to try and bait something, make sure it's not warded. I've seen a lot of teams do that in solo queue, where they'll try and bait a bush, and they'll be there for like a minute or 2 minutes, and then they'll be like, oh crap, I was standing on a ward and it just expired.
Then again, Anivia is walking back from base right now, so engaging in a team fight might have not been completely advantageous for Purple Team, even considering how far ahead they are right now. They should really just take the inhibitor because Jax and Lee Sin are recalling as we speak. That's basically a free objective right there. I'm not sure why Jax and Lee Sin were so far out of position for this.
I think they were both trying to pick up farm, to be honest.
Yes, but I mean, at the same time, the Purple Team came straight down from lane. You had a long time to see that coming, and the fact that they waited so long to recall really speaks ill of, like, their map awareness, really.
For sure. We do see Jinx getting caught out again there, and that boils down to her trying to play aggressive versus a team who can cut her off from her team. And so that's exactly what happened. Anivia lands a wall, everyone jumps on her, boom, that's a dead, very, very dead Jinx. At that point, there is no one who can defend this now. They're not low, they don't have a poke team, and so there's no way for Katarina to really get any resets.
They're going to be defending it to the best of their abilities. Lee Sin taking so much damage from this Anivia. And that looks like it's going to be GG for blue team. If Jinx hadn't gotten caught out there, they probably may have been able to save the
They
tower.
definitely would have been able to hold out a little bit longer. A concern that I noted just right at the end there is that their team is very all-in engage-based. They don't have a whole lot of poke besides the little taser coming out, the zap from Jinx. And so there's no way to safely get the enemy team low enough for Katarina to get resets.
And good game.
Okay, so really good job to both teams. Just a quick reminder that we are doing a quick Steam game giveaway. It is your final chance to enter that, the keyword being round 2. In the meantime, I will have us go over the final item builds, final comments on gameplay style, and then we're going to get right into the next game.
Who would like to start?
You can start.
Okay, perfect. Highlight of this game for me was definitely the Anivia. Anivia had very strong prioritizing in team fights, very good map awareness as well. Kept following the Katarina around and just making sure that she could not snowball out of control as she should have, really. So I'd really like to, oh my gosh, highlight Rufflecopter Soy Soy as the MVP of Purple Team in my mind.
I definitely agree with you there. The Katarina ganks could have gone incredibly well for blue team, but because Anivia followed up and continuously followed her lane, it really put a stop to Katarina's farming and potentially getting a kill off in bot lane.
On the other side of the spectrum, I would like to say that Jinx should probably work a little bit more on her positioning. In the AD carry role, positioning is such a critical component of the play style that really there were so many times where she was too ballsy, way too far ahead of her team, and pretty much like playing as a frontliner when in fact she should have stayed back and tried to pick off target from a safe distance.
Especially when you have a team like Katarina, Thresh, Lee Sin, Jax. No one on your team is really going to be able to peel for you. And they are going to be putting down a lot of damage, because Katarina can assassinate so well and because Jax is just, such a monster late game. Because they're going to be putting out so much damage potentially onto the carries, Jinx really needs to stay back because there's no peel for her. And she could, like you said, just go on janitorial duty and try and finish the kill for Katarina, which most of the time Katarina was able to get a lot of the members on their team solo, but no one was there to finish them off.
Yeah, and late game, if your AD carry is dead, that's most of your team fight damage gone. It's your sustained DPS, assuming they can stay in a safe position and continue just pumping it out, just shooting constantly. Okay,
Also,
so do you have any comments on like builds, items that you find good, bad, that you would have liked to see replaced?
the only real comment that I had was the top lane Trundle decided to rush the Sunfire Cape against Jax, whereas in fact I would have seen him better off by rushing the Blade of the Ruined King. Blade of the Ruined King is such a strong item on Trundle. His carry potential just skyrockets as soon as he builds that item, basically. I feel that he would have been a lot more effective against Jax, even if Jax is able to dodge a lot of auto attacks, simply because Trundle's trade potential would have been much better for it.
I'm also not too sure if I like the Hextech Gunblade on Jax. I don't really see Hextech Gunblade being built too often, and I think Jax could have definitely maybe done better there by finishing his Bilgewater Cutlass into the Blade of the Ruined King or building another tanky item. Also, a lack of a Sightstone from Lee Sin. I think a Sightstone could have been really good for his team in terms of ward coverage and better ganks from Lee Sin as well.
I definitely do like it as a mid-game item just to pick up because it does give you a lot of gold generation in terms of value from the wards it generates. It also increases his mobility, tankiness. It's just such a powerful item on him. You don't have to rush it or build it every game, but it is definitely a good pickup.